Hello and welcome to What's Your Fandom, the podcast where myself and my good friend Stuart journey through the fandoms of film, TV, games, books and comics, flying our geek flags and talking our way through the multiverses. All of them. My name is Mike and this is the episode you've all been waiting for. This is part 2 of Stuart and I's conversation about the season finale of The Last of Us. We were discussing the final 3 episodes all in one go, and when it came to the edit, we realised that actually it would be a really, really long episode. So we split it into 2, and this is the second part. This episode deals mainly with the season finale, episode 9 of the first series. What did you think? I'm desperate to know what you guys think, because I know what Stuart thought, I know what I thought. You can get in touch with us on Instagram and now Twitter. We have ventured to the tweeting universe. I'll pop our username and the link and stuff in the description for the episode. So yeah, let us know what you think. Please do. Love a chat, we do. And just before we jump into the episode, I wanted to make you guys aware that this episode does feature themes of graphic depictions of violence and traumatic events. There are descriptions of non-consensual sexual acts. There's some downright filthy language, and this is genuinely not suitable for listeners under the age of 18. Some of these themes may be triggering, so please take care of yourself and don't hesitate to ask for help if you need it. But with that said, we hope you enjoy this episode.
Anna in the cold open, which was Ellie's mum. And I will say, do you know what, something I do like is when a TV show picks up somewhere completely different to where you were last time or with somebody else, especially after all that trauma. You know you're going to get back to your main characters, but I think I quite like kind of working out again, well, what's going on here? Who is this? And when are we? And what's happening? I like that. So I enjoyed that cold open and her running to that empty house and going upstairs and trying to barricade the door because she was being chased. And she was pregnant, and then her waters broke. I was like, fucking hell, this is how a situation can get worse. You can be pregnant, and then you can have to give birth whilst being chased during a zombie apocalypse. I mean, I don't want that on my bucket list. That was horrendous, and it was really great. And obviously, the elephant in the room is that, of course, Anna is played by the actor who played Ellie in the games.
Yeah, Ashley Johnson.
Yes, and I said to you that she looked familiar to me, and you reminded me that she'd been in the Avengers.
Yes.
And I was like, of course she was. And I actually remembered her from that, and she was a waitress.
Yeah, she had a small role as a waitress. This, I think, is a deleted scene in the Avengers where I think Captain America, he's going to this cafe like all the time. Because I think at that point, after the Captain America film, obviously that's when he first comes into modern day.
Of course.
And then obviously the next one was Avengers. So I think whilst he's sort of adjusting to this massive time jump, he goes to this cafe and she tells him how like people tend to sit here because they might get a glimpse of Iron Man coming out of the Stark Tower, which is just there.
Oh, I didn't know. That's cool.
Yeah, so I think it's a deleted scene. Yeah, so it kind of then when they have that thing at the end where they have like all the news reporters talking to all the civilians.
That's right.
And she's like, "Oh, Captain America saved my life," and it's like, "Oh, that's cool."
That is cool.
Yeah.
Was it fulfilling for you to see her in such a pivotal role?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I honestly lost it. Like I said to you before, I did that. You know that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he points to the TV?
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
I was like, Ashley Johnson. I was like, yes. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy because before the show came out, they'd interviewed Troy and Ashley, and they said that they had cameos in the show, but they had to keep it a secret to the point where they couldn't even say who they were playing. And I thought that is great because it's somebody pivotal. If they can't say who it is, it's clearly going to be pivotal roles.
Yes.
Now Troy's role wasn't as pivotal, but Ashley's is certainly, because the thing with Ellie in the games. You don't know anything about her parents. There's nothing.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's why it was so like, oh shit, that's her mother. Fuck, that's so cool. Because all you know is Marlene knew her mother and that she was entrusted to look after Ellie. That's all you know.
Right.
And that's one of those like throwaway kind of lines as well. That's just sort of said.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't know anything. So as the thing is as well for me, like watching that, I think watching it as a dad as well, like seeing this newborn baby, and from the moment they're born, I mean, you obviously see like a newborn baby like on TV and stuff, and that's like lovely, and you hear like the baby cooing and baby crying, and it's like, oh, sweet, like. Um, but it shows from the moment she was born, she's had turmoil in her life.
Yeah.
She's had, probably about an hour after she's born, or a couple of hours, she hears a gunshot going off because her mother's just been shot. There's an infected on the floor in the room that she was born in.
Yeah.
And it just it reaffirms, like, she has literally had like horrors and turmoil her entire life.
Yeah. And it's made her grow up before her time, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, so this is interesting then. So if we don't know anything about her mother and her parentage from the game, the fact that we saw her mother get bitten, and we're not entirely sure whether Ellie had been delivered, or like we're not exactly sure on the timing and what happened when in that sequence. But this is pivotal. This is absolutely pivotal because she then realizes, oh, the baby's here. And then she's like, oh my God, the baby's here. Then she's like, oh, I've been bitten. So you see her realize it in that order. We don't know what happened. And then she does cut the umbilical cord, obviously, to stop the infection spreading into the baby.
Yes.
But are we to take from that this could perhaps be something to do with why or how Ellie is immune?
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. That information, I don't really think you get it in the game. Like in the game, it's just like, she's just immune, and that's really all you know. But that's been told from the point of view of characters that don't know her very well. Like Joel says it to Tommy when she goes to see Tommy, when he goes to see him like in the winter or whatever.
Yeah.
He sits down and he tells him, he's like, oh, what's with this girl? And Joel says, like, she's immune. And he's like, what? And then obviously it's Ellie that tells Tess that, like, so maybe Ellie doesn't know herself why she's immune.
I don't think she knows. I don't think anyone knows. But this is. I have questions because that from the timeline point of view. Then, so the character who is obviously Anna's friend, who has to pick up Ellie and then kill her friend because she's been infected. Yes. Which was a very powerful scene. And when she walked away and she said she couldn't do it, I was like, fuck. And Anna was like, no, you have to do it. You have to. You were the one not pleased. And I was like, you have to do it. You have to kill her. I was like, that's a mark of respect. Yeah. And so she is aware that at this point that Ellie has been born and her mother was bitten.
Yes.
So it's dubious. Now then, so to the point then where Ellie is chained up in the first time that we see her. She's chained up by the fireflies, right?
Yes.
And the person, what was the name of the person who had to shoot Anna? What was her name?
It was Marlene.
So Marlene, she's a firefly.
She's the leader, yeah.
She's the leader of the fireflies. So we had to understand then that in the stuff that happened in Left Behind. So either they found Ellie out, or Ellie came back and had to say what happened or whatever, because she'd been bitten, and that's why they chained her up.
Yeah.
So we have to assume then, from that point in time, then Marlene's like, right, you're immune, and I'm equipped with the knowledge that your mother was bitten when you were born. She knows both of those things, doesn't she?
Yes.
So I just had to say that out loud to understand that Marlene knew that. Now, Marlene is obviously the person that we meet as well at the end of this episode, isn't it? When they, or during the finale episode where Joel and Ellie are captured by the fireflies.
Yes.
So Marlene is now like I have to use you to find a cure. and it is what it is, because I've spent the last 14 years fighting in this world to survive, and also fighting to create, or to create the Fireflies are like a terrorist group, right?
Yeah.
So they're not like this is what I'm trying to get my head around, because Fireflies aren't necessarily the goodies. Let's break it down. They're a group of people who have a certain set of beliefs, but they're trying to fight for the freedom of people.
Yes.
Rather than being governed by however they're being governed.
Yes.
Okay. So now I understand that. That makes sense. But it's just it's hard, because it's hard to grasp that then the decision, that Marlene's decision, then she has to make that decision.
Yeah.
Surely, I mean, she doesn't want it to kill Ellie. Of course not. No. But again, this is an adult making very difficult decisions with what's in front of her for the sake of humanity.
Yes.
So at that point, I'm not sure whether she is just like a baddie, because I kind of agree with that decision. Not in that it'll kill Ellie. I don't want any child to die for the greater good. That's awful. But you can understand the train of thought.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. They got a chance to make a vaccine that might work, but the cost is Ellie's life.
Now then, so I have to ask you, because obviously we see the sequence where Joel finds out what's going to happen and is led away, and you can see him stopping a couple of times, and it's all in his head. I loved it. He performed it so well. It's all in his head. Should I go back? No, keep walking. So he just follows the orders. He's trying to figure out what to do, because he's a Firefly.
Yes.
So this would mean an awful lot if he chooses to do this. He would be choosing Ellie over everything else he's been doing since he lost Sarah.
Yeah, well, I'd like to point out he's not an active Firefly at that point.
Okay.
Obviously, he's been a Firefly, but he's also been a hunter, because I think he does say in the show how he's been on both sides.
Okay.
So he's sort of very much very much a grey character.
Okay, good. Okay. So that I have to ask you then, how you obviously knew what was coming, in that he does choose to overthrow those guards and go on a killing spree through the Firefly complex to save Ellie.
Yeah.
And he was taking no prisoners. He wasn't wounding them. He was flat out gunning them down, because he was like, this is not the way. Do you see what I did there?
Yes.
This is not the way. So what's your take on that, and how do you feel about what just happened?
Well, yeah, obviously, from the moment he stops and he says, which way? When he said that line, I was like, right, he's doing it. Yeah. So obviously what he's done, he's gone back, he's massacred everybody, because he wants to ensure that nothing is going to get in his way for getting to Ellie. And he's made sure of that. As you said, he's not wounding people, he is killing people, because he needs to get back to Ellie. But this, right. This is right. This is going to sound really, really stupid, because this isn't real and it's just a video game, or a TV series in this case. This genuinely does make me quite emotional, because, like, that's the length he's going to.
Yeah.
For, I know she's not actually his daughter.
It's almost like this is the moment where he's like, she is my daughter.
Yeah.
Or I care for her as much as I did for my daughter. After years of suppressing that, and being the guy who, was throwing the bodies of dead children into those pits to be burned at the beginning of the series, to being this person who would choose to do this to save someone who he's almost deciding in that moment to take her on as a new child.
Yeah.
Accepting his feelings.
Yeah.
But what he does is massacre a group of people in order to do that.
Yes.
And I know you're saying that Joel is a man who lives in the grey area, and he does.
Mm-hmm.
But what's equally as fascinating to me is what happens afterwards when they're in the car. And he tells Ellie what his new version of events that he wants to tell her.
Mm-hmm.
And then the continuing conversation on foot and leading up to that last moment, really, on that mountainside where she asks him if what he said was the truth.
Yes.
And he lies. He said, yes, it is the truth.
Mm.
And the look on her face was just the most incredible look. I think that for the very end of the episode, it was just absolutely outstanding. This look, which to me said, you are lying to me. I know you're lying to me. So I have two choices here. I can either choose to accept the lie and try and live that, or I have to accept that you're lying to me for a good reason.
Mm.
And that means the truth is that I am still humanity's only hope, and you have chosen to disregard that. And now I have to live with you. And I was like, fucking hell, this girl deserves all the awards.
Yes.
I mean, and so does Pedro's performance as well. You know, he was almost more chipper.
Yes.
He was a bit more kind of like, it's okay, we'll go over here now. And he was trying too hard to make her comfortable and make him trust him, make her trust him, and believe what he's saying. But she's there. I could just tell she fucking knows he's lying. That was my take from it, anyway. What do you think?
Well, that's the thing. That ending it plays out exactly the same on the mountainside.
Wow. Okay.
The line as well, like, swear to me, everything you told me about the Fireflies is true.
Yeah.
Everything is the same, and I've always felt a massive sense of ambiguity to that ending. Like,
huge.
What you've just said now, like, that wasn't like my first thought.
Okay.
She believes him. I sort of looked at that in. I wonder if she was kind of relieved and like, oh, nobody's chasing us anymore, you know, and that maybe she did feel safe. Maybe she knows that, like, you know, because of the story he's told her, maybe she did believe that and just think like, okay, that's, you know, if they found other people or whatever, or that there is no cure or whatever, because he told us sort of like two different lies, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I think he tried to add on to it to try and make it more.
Yeah. He's trying too hard.
Yeah.
To make her believe him.
Yeah. So I categorically, I don't know if Ellie believes what he says or not, but I think a part of her needed to hear that, because I think Joel doesn't want her to be scared anymore.
Yeah.
Because she's been on the run for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird
Could
one.
it be then that it's a sort of weird combination of Joel chose to do things, and by doing those things has sort of decided that Ellie is going to be my family, and I protect my family, and I do whatever's necessary to protect my family because of what happened before. And then finally letting go and letting her in like that, he is almost being like, I will be your father.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, she is there listening to him and is sort of thinking, what I have to do is trust what you're saying, and that will let me be your daughter.
Yeah.
And have that security and have that bond. And in order to do that, I have to take what you're saying as the truth and on face value, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
But she knows what this world makes of men. She's just gone through what she went through in the previous episode.
Yeah.
And she knows that in all likelihood, what is the likelihood then of what he said being the truth, and then her being in the back of a car with none of her things, dressed in a hospital gown? She's not stupid.
No, she's not.
But she also, I think, deeply, deeply wants to trust what he's saying, to know that he's being honest with her and not lying and treating her as an adult, and that will allow her to have a relationship that she's never had before, that she's craved all her life.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on in that moment.
There is. I think as well, like, it shows. I mean, I know we're supposed to be like on Joel's side.
Of course. He did he do the right thing?
Well, I can say from like I say, I was briefly mentioning it earlier, from a dad perspective, if I was in that, if I had to do that, then I'd like to think like, yeah, that's what I would do for my daughter.
Of course you would.
100%.
That's the right human thing to do.
But at the same time, this is where the moral ambiguity comes in now, isn't it? Because really what he's done is really quite selfish, if you think about it. He's put his needs above like the human race, isn't it, if you think about it? By rescuing Ellie, by stopping the production of this vaccine, that just shows that like what he cares about, and it's not me throwing shade at Joel here, but he just cares about himself and he cares about Ellie, and that's all he cares about. The whole human race, obviously he doesn't care enough about the human race as a species to let Ellie go, because he can't, because she's practically his daughter at this point, and who the hell would do that? But I think as well, the reason he's lied to Ellie, I think Marlene kind of mentioned this as well, just before she'd been prepped for surgery, is like, I think she asked Joel, like, what would Ellie say?
And he knows, he knows that she would be like, I will give myself up for this world to be better. Because actually, realistically, what is my life going to be moving forward? Is it going to be finding a community like David and settling for that? Is it going to be constantly being on the run for the rest of my life? Is it meeting somebody, falling in love, having them love me, and having me have to kill them because I'm fucking immune?
Yeah.
And she sees all that.
Yes. Yeah.
Arguably, Marlene was making the right call.
Yes.
But what she didn't do was ask Ellie what she wanted.
No.
And I think that Joel knows that Ellie would have made the tough decision that he can't make. Because Ellie isn't a parent.
No.
And Joel is.
Yes.
He was once. He tried to let it go, but he's always been a father. Or as Pedro Pascal says, he's a daddy.
Yes.
But he is. He's everyone's daddy right now.
He is, doesn't he?
And so that's what it really does turn the tables again in this sort of weird power play, that Ellie is sort of the grown-up. And Joel is sort of dependent on her, and it's a real it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And it asks so many questions, and it was played beautifully, written beautifully. Honestly. And I think that what I said, because you and I kind of didn't and haven't discussed this, have we, off mic, because we wanted to kind of keep it fresh for this episode. But I think that it's interesting that you said earlier that this wasn't the flashiest, action-packed, big finale that I think we were all possibly expecting, or we learned to expect from TV. It was quite underplayed, but actually the drama that happens in this episode was phenomenal. Yeah. I've loved this series.
Same.
Oh, I have loved it so much. And I was talking to Simon, friend of the podcast, Simon, who hasn't seen it, hasn't played the game, unsure, and also kind of, we were talking about how, and you and I have said this, on paper, this show doesn't have anything that we haven't seen before.
True.
But it's special. And that is really interesting to kind of dissect it to figure out why that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always felt, again, I appreciate that I'm like massively biased towards this. I think I've always had a true appreciation for the story in the game. I think the like gameplays in video games, like they can improve that, like as games develop and stuff like that, or they can make different decisions. So there will probably come a point where the gameplay of Last of Us might not be as good as other video games, but in terms of character development and story and acting, that's really hard to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the thing when the game came out, especially with such an ambiguous ending. I think Naughty Dog Studios and Neil Druckmann, who like wrote it, um, I think they knew we could leave this here right now. We won't ever have to make another game, and people will be satisfied.
Yes.
But deciding to make a sequel, which they did, I think they knew there was an element of risk because what happens is, well, you've just set the bar now for what fans want. If you don't reach that bar, fans are going to be disappointed.
Mm.
Now, I haven't played the second video game, but like now more than ever, I really want to. Right, I will, because there are things I know about the second game. Like,
so here's the thing. Okay, let's not go into too many spoilers of season 2, but I do have, because I have some sort of tidbits of information that I have seen online this week that I think is okay to talk about, and I'm okay to speculate, but you know more, don't you? And I don't know whether I want to be spoiled yet for season 2. So let me just. I've got 2 things here from season 2. The first thing is that The Last of Us season 2 won't recast Ellie actor for time jump. That came up on my socials, and I was like, oh, okay, so there's a time jump. So that was kind of potentially a spoiler, but it's not too bad a spoiler because it's
we've had time jumps throughout the first season, right?
Exactly. So it didn't, and it felt like if they're heading towards the community with Tommy, it would make sense that we would need some time to make ourselves part of that community before all hell breaks loose again for season 2. That kind of makes sense. But obviously, I'm getting from that the time jump is going to be possibly years. Yeah. So I'm assuming that, of course, she's like 14 in this series. She's supposed to be 14 in the first series, so I'm thinking, closer to 20, perhaps for the second series. But I don't know that. That's just me putting it out there. A significant time jump for her to be a bit older. They're not recasting her, so it makes sense that she's kind of that age now. So that kind of is where my brain has gone. Okay. The other thing that I read online, because I don't want to read too much, I will read stuff about the making of series 2, as long as it doesn't go into the story about the game of the second game, because I feel like that is, if you want to know what happens, you can play the game, can't you? Or you can probably read about it. But this just says that the part 2 of the game is a bigger, more complex story than its predecessor. There's more characters, more flashbacks, more action set pieces. So they're going to be spanning the story of the second game across multiple seasons of the show.
Right.
So, and again, I think that isn't so much of a spoiler to me, because the nature of the beast of TV and HBO is that they're going to want more of this to make more money. Yes. So whether that was going to make sense in terms of story anyway, it made sense that they would try and spread it out for as long as they can to keep the money coming in. So I expected there to either be the story from the game in a season and then brand new material, or a mix of those two things for longevity, basically.
Okay.
So that's all I know about season 2.
Right.
And that's kind of right now all I'm happy to know.
Yes.
because it's just nice to it's interesting. For me, I'm not a big gamer, as you know, but I'm a big reader. And a lot of the times, if I really, really wanted to know what happened and there was a book, I would probably go and get the book.
Yes.
But because I don't really play games, I'm not going to itch to go and get a game, get the game and play the second game. It's just not. But you makes complete sense, having played the first game and having loved the first series, to go out there and get the second game.
Totally.
But then you run the risk. Then you don't get to watch the second series, kind of spoiler free.
That is true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But then I suppose with that comes the absence of not knowing what they've adapted directly from the game and what they've put in for themselves, which I suppose could be good and bad, I guess.
Yeah, and how they spread that and how they divide it across season 2, season 3, and how that makes sense. So there's more characters. It makes sense to be with different people at different times, and it might turn into a little bit more like The Walking Dead, but where you have an episode in this particular place and an episode in this particular place, which I don't mind so much as long as it's still only about 8 episodes a season. Because in The Walking Dead it was 20 and it was just exhausting. It was draining. That's not what we want. That's not what television is anymore.
No, it's not.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm so glad the second season's been greenlit.
Yes.
Now we're getting more. You know, we could sit here and speculate about what happens next season, but the difficulty is you have some knowledge already. so it could cross into like too big a spoiler territories. I think which won't talk about what we want to happen. Or is there something that you want to happen that you don't know does happen or doesn't?
I'm trying to think.
For me, from a production point of view, I would just like to get to know characters for longer.
Right.
So that we can really feel like when there's jeopardy that they're in jeopardy and really care about that.
Okay.
That's what I would like.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say is, because obviously I wouldn't spoil anything.
Yeah.
Because no one likes to spoil it, do they?
Well, it's weird because there's a weird love-hate relationship with spoilers.
Yeah. It depends what it is. If I care enough about it,
I
don't want it. Unfortunately, a portion of it was a premise of Last of Us 2 that was kind of spoiled for me.
Okay.
And I was gutted.
Okay.
Having watched the first season, there is something in the season finale which, and when I saw it, it was like, this is the setup for part 2.
Ooh.
Now, it's small, but it's one of those things like, if you know, kind of thing.
Right.
It's nothing that's said, it's just something that you see. And when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, right. And then, yeah. So with that in mind, should they explore that in the TV show, I'd be interested to see how they do it in relation to the game. And I hope it's one of those things that's exactly the same as the game. Because I found with this TV show, there are moments in which I've loved that they've gone off and done their own thing, but there are other moments which they've stuck to the game's cinematics or dialogue or set pieces or whatever, and I've gone, yes, that's exactly how it should be. This is one of those situations where what they do in the video game, I feel like it has to be sort of exact in the TV show for it to really, for maximum impact.
Okay. I mean, that does raise a kind of a bigger question about adaptations, and I mean, because we're very lucky. We've got Neil Druckmann, who's writing on the show, executive producing the show, heavily involved in the show, and obviously was the writer of the game and stuff. So that is all fantastic, and so I feel like we're in safe hands in that respect.
Yes,
but I feel like the adaptations need, this is for TV, this isn't a game, and actually in seeing Anna, for example, and seeing that little scene which added to the world of the TV show, would have added to the world of the game had there been time and a place to fit it in.
Yeah,
I guess. So I just feel like it's a really interesting thing where, adding stuff in can be a good thing. But I see what you're saying, that you want it to be exactly the same. But what we have to remember as well is that a game is a very different beast.
Yes.
And I know that this sounds like a weird thing to say, but like, there's obviously a very violent program, right? Very violent story, very violent game, etc.
Mm.
But in a game, you're signing up for a game where you're carrying weapons and your job is to go around killing things, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost more horrific in a TV show because it's a more, I guess it's more emotional. You're more, it's more visceral because in the game it's just like kill, 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 points, 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 move on to the next level.
Mm.
And in a TV show, that it feels a bit more real.
I think as well, it's the element of control as well, isn't it?
True, true. It's happening. You have no control. You are being guided by the TV show,
Mm.
whereas in the game, you're the one pulling the trigger by pressing the buttons.
Yeah.
And there's a detachment, I think, from all that death and violence because you're playing a game.
Yes.
Whereas in a TV show, it's being put in front of you as a story, and stories are things have to happen A to B to C, but they're also feelings.
Yes.
And I think so that's where I'm okay with them tugging on those heartstrings a bit more. And I guess the violence is just something that was an example of how things are different between a game and a TV show.
Yeah.
So it needs to change.
Mm. Yeah. I think as well, what's good about both, I mean, there's a lot of things draw, there's a lot of parallel things that I enjoy about the show and the game. But one sort of recurring theme I've noticed, I don't know if you picked up on this from watching the season, is this element of there is no action that doesn't have a consequence.
Oh, 100%. 100%, especially from the human's point of view.
Yeah.
And actually, what's interesting as well, another interesting thing which leads on from that is the lack of infected in the second half of the series.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in the finale you only see one, and that's in a flashback.
Yeah. Yeah. That was quite a brave move.
Yeah. I think, wasn't it in episode 3? Would I be right in saying that's the Bill and Frank episode? Would I be right in saying that there were no infected?
I don't think there were.
Maybe not then.
I don't think there were. I mean, that is super interesting as well.
Yeah. That's the thing, the way they've handled the infected. They're a very credible threat. You got the runners, you have the clickers, the bloaters and stuff. But really, it's the humans that are. I kind of think of like the infected as a sort of a force for nature, like they're just there.
Yeah, well, this
Whereas
is the
the
thing.
humans,
To me, they're not thinkers.
no,
They're not plotting a cunning plan to come and get the human race. They're acting on instinct.
yeah,
And that makes them a very different beast.
yeah, yeah. And there are situations as well, especially in like the game, where you don't have to engage in combat with them. You could choose to like sneak past them and avoid
Of course.
them. I think it's probably the only criticism I've probably got for this show. I don't know if it is a fair criticism or not. It's going to sound a bit of a strange one for you to hear, but there was obviously we see like weapons, we see rifles, pistols, revolvers. In the video game, you come across a bow and arrow, which is quite significant in the game.
Okay.
It's a game changer
Okay.
as a weapon, and it was absent in the TV show, and it's a little bit gutted. But at the same time, I was like, I suppose maybe it taking that away kind of gives it a more grounded sort of realism, I guess.
Yes, I think it does become a bit more fantastical
Yeah,
in a way.
it's a weird
But
one.
there's always season 2
There is always season 2.
and
Yeah.
beyond because this is going to go on for a while, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So, final thoughts, Stu. Season 1 of The Last of Us.
Just amazing. I was so happy to see a video game that I love adapted into a great TV show, and it's one I'll happily watch again.
Same, absolutely. I'm so happy to have been absorbed by it so fully, and also in discussing it with you has made me love it more.
Right.
because that having that kind of outlet to be able to kind of dissect thoughts and feelings and motives and things has made me appreciate it on a whole other level.
Yes.
And I hope the people listening to us as well talking about it feel the same, and it makes them kind of intrigued if they haven't watched it to go watch it, or to be enthusiastic, or to completely disagree with us and think, no, you're wrong. You're just both wrong. You're just fanning this flame. But no, I've really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, like I said, apart from a few, I guess the most obvious kind of, not criticism for me, but I can tell that this was a level in the game where Tess was present, and then we moved on. And then I can tell we were at a different level of the game when the brothers, whose names I can never remember, were in the game, and then we moved on. And then, do you know what I mean? That's where the adaptation is most clearly seen for me, in that we aren't building a world of characters that are going to continue to be with us. But perhaps season 2 will rectify that by telling us a story over a longer period of time and dividing those characters up a bit.
Mm. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Like I say, I'm keen to play the video game, probably before the show comes out. I mean, that's the only thing, is waiting now, isn't it? I mean, all right, it's being greenlit, but it could be years before we even get it on TV. And,
It probably will be.
yeah, I think.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's just the waiting.
It's just the wait. You've got to be patient, Stu.
Yes.
Luckily, there is multiple other fandoms out there to get absorbed in and talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank God we have a podcast. I want to see Tommy back, and I want to see his wife back. I say wife, I'm presuming they're married, and I want to see them have their baby, or their baby growing up.
Yes.
I'll put that out there. I would like to see them again. And that would be a really nice... Even them coming back would feel like, okay, cool. We've got this world they're building of people that we care about. Because otherwise we're just going to care about Joel and Ellie, which is fine, but it makes everybody else expendable, and it makes them not expendable.
The plot armor.
Yeah. And so I just feel like we need some other people that we can care about. Not too many. Just build up a little bit of a bigger cast, so that we can return to them. We can see what they're going through. Because what Tommy and I can't remember her name. Sorry, his wife. What was her name?
Do you know what? I honestly can't remember. I want to say.
Is it Marie? We struggled before. Was it Marie or Maria or something? What she is going through in her community is a very different story to what David went through.
Yes.
And I'm glad that David was a one and done story, because vile. But I want to see what Maria has to go through. And Tommy as a dad, I kind of want to see that. And hopefully we'll get the opportunity. And if that's not in the game, then I would like them to treat the TV show differently and give us that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they're building a world where people are alive, and I think we should go back there.
Yes.
That is what I'd like to end on. That's quite positive. Seeing them again, seeing them grow, seeing people thrive, and then zombie apocalypse.
Yes.
So, Stuart, as is tradition, we always end in a movie quote. Have you got one for us this week?
I do.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Right, okay, I'm just gonna let you quote us. Go on, Stu. Give us your deadpan Welsh filmic portrayal of something exciting.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Well, I've got you this week. I know what that's from, which is a first for a while, because I have not known what you've been talking about. Wow, what a thematic change from The Last of Us to that.
No, when I said baby, I was referring to Pedro Pascal.
Of course you were. No, nobody puts daddy in the corner. Nobody. Can I just say as well very briefly, he is suddenly like the man of the moment.
He is.
I mean, he is all over social media as being hysterical and being really, he seems really lovely.
Yes.
He seems like a really decent human being, and I like actually listening to him talk and being in interviews. He has such a laugh with people. And up until this point, I'm going to put this out there, he's played a lot of characters who have had an agenda and who have, well, you didn't trust. And whatever he popped up in, I was like, I don't trust him. Because whatever he's in, he's saying he's nice, he's actually the villain. And it happened quite a few times. And now I've gone completely blank to any examples other than The Kingsman and Game of Thrones.
Yes.
But there was all...
Wonder Woman 84, was he in that?
Yes, he was.
I didn't see it.
Yes, and he was like a positive figure who was also the villain. And you were a bit like... Oh.
Yeah. Was he Maxwell Lord?
I don't know. I've seen it once, and I don't take in names very well, as you know.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm really glad. And then the Mandalorian happened, which is great, but you don't see his face. So it's not. It's not the same thing, is it? So this is for the first time in a long time. He's playing a character who I really care about, and that makes me happy.
Thank you for listening to What's Your Fandom. Please hit the subscribe button to make sure that you never miss an episode. And if you could leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, not only will we be your bestest friends forever, but it will also help other listeners to find us. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram, where our username is @fandompod, and on YouTube, just search for What's Your Fandom. And we will catch you next time.